Would you pay $9 to drive across the harbour in Auckland on a new or even the old bridge? It's one of these suggestions, not a hard recommendation, but just a suggestion in this new Infrastructure Commission report looking at how much we'll need to spend and invest on roads and infrastructure in New Zealand over the next 30 years. Jeff Cooper is the CEO of the New Zealand Infrastructure Commission and is with me live this morning. Hey, Jeff.
Kia ora, Ryan. Good to be with you here this morning.
Now, I know the report's 220 pages long. I have picked out one little dollop from page 67. Are you surprised at how much attention this particular bit is getting?
No, it's visceral to people and it's a big number. And I think, if I was to say something, though, it's not that the Commission is recommending it. We're simply using this number to show people the size and magnitude of this project, right? And if you don't do a $9 toll, then you're going to end up having to fund it from other sources. And what we're showing is that when you look across all of New Zealand and the pressures we have on our infrastructure and the budgets that they're under, that path looks very narrow.
And are you talking one way?
I mean, ultimately, the modelling exercise we've gone through here is to toll it both ways on both bridges. You can't, we're looking at the question of how much revenue could you sort of maximally get to understand a reasonable project envelope. If you just toll one bridge or one way, you end up with a number that doesn't fund much of the project at all. In fact, under what we're
people will take the free road and then you don't
there.
get the money to pay for the new build. We're just looking at some pictures, Jeff, of back in the 60s when this thing, well, it was built in the late 50s, but then the clip-ons happened in the following decade. Is that where you got this number from the original number and then inflation adjusted, or how did you come to $9?
No, I mean, if you income adjust the original toll, it was actually closer to about $17. We've done reports on that. And I think that demonstrates back then people were prepared to pay a lot because it avoided an enormous inconvenience. This is a really significant piece of infrastructure for the people of Auckland. What we've done here, again, simply is ask the question is, well, what sort of level of revenue could you generate from the assets so that we can understand orders of magnitude, how this project might be scoped? Because in the past, we've been talking about, total project numbers that are well north of the $9 billion. That this toll will provide. And as I say, like if users are not paying for the construction and operation of the asset, you've got to be asking non-users to do it, and that draws in equity issues, but it also draws in issues of other infrastructure needs that you can service elsewhere around New Zealand.
Jeff, in your modelling, have you looked at how much someone coming across on a train or a bus or whatever might go on the other bridge, how much they might have to pay for that service?
Well, we've asked the question of if you did put a toll on the bridge, what would that mean in terms of people deciding actually, like I might not use it or I might get on the buses, which are a viable alternative. So we have looked at that. That's an important part of understanding what a toll might do in terms of the revenue it raises, for sure, yes.
Okay. And in terms, so this is two ways. So that's $18 a day if you live on the shore and you're working in the city. That's a lot of money for people. But then people pay a lot to go on the ferries too, don't they? So I guess that's all relative.
And I think, what this sort of gets at is that this is a very unique project for New Zealand. It's very expensive. It's coming up for renewal and replacement in the near future. It cannot be funded from existing normal FedRUC National Land Transport Fund. It is simply too big to be conceived under that. And so that's why we're sort of highlighting this as a problem. And if you don't like tolls, it just sort of speaks to the difficulty of getting this one across the line. Now, the public will see that manifest in the form of continual delay, and we'll always be wondering, why can't we do this thing faster? And, as the plan is making clear, one of the reasons for that is the financials and expense of the project.
But I'm with it. $9 is a hell of a lot of money, but I would rather that we went with whatever the extreme number is and hope that it comes out less, but actually build something. Otherwise, we will literally never build it, and we will still be have the same problems we have. Are there any other projects that are too big, as you just described this one as too big, and are any of our RONs?
Well, I mean, there's 44 projects in the national pipeline that are more than $1 billion. And, anytime we look at a project of that size and complexity, it brings in all kinds of risks. And so the Commission has always said, where there are opportunities to turn big projects into small projects, programatize them over time, you're more likely to bring the costs down and be able to manage them, rather than trying to do these big bang projects, which, as we've seen around the country, they regularly blow budgets, which means that we can't achieve infrastructure services in other areas where we need them.
Jeff, what about the actual RONs, the specific RONs themselves? The Northland going all the way through to Whangarei, Warkworth to Wellsford to get there, the Waikato, the Cambridge to Paerere, which is the safety issues. Then you've got Nelson Tasman, State Highway 6, Hope Bypass. Are there any of these you've looked at and gone, those specifically you shouldn't do?
Well, what we've done is look at all of these collectively, and we've also looked at these next to public transport investments as well, because we need a functioning multimodal system here as well. So we've looked at all of these together and sort of shown how one could stage and sequence these over time in a way that is fundable and could be delivered.
So you're not saying don't do this, don't do that. You're just saying this is the order you should do them in and how you can fund them.
I mean, ultimately, New Zealand is probably going to need all of these projects if we continue to grow, right? But this is a question of timing and being able to do it in a way that's affordable, frankly, for people's household wallets, right? Because every time we build a new asset, it's an obligation to maintain that asset, and after a period of time, ultimately replace the asset. And that's happening more frequently because of the increasing intensity and severity of weather events, which is really increasing the costs of having assets right now. So we need to take that seriously.
The problem we've got is you've done this lovely report, but we need the politicians to agree on a pipeline together and come together and do that. And yesterday we already heard Chris Hipkins saying the RONs are stupid. Essentially, RONs are they've gone too far, and the minister's saying, no, we're sticking with the RONs. That's a massive problem, isn't it?
I mean, look, one of the big calls of the plan actually is to get real on what it costs to replace, renew, and maintain the assets that we already have. I think in many cases, there's a tendency to overestimate just how much resources we have available for new capital investments. And I think if we can get consensus on what it looks like to simply maintain things in a world of increasing natural hazard, that gets us a long way and I think explaining that to folks out there who are out there trying to, maintain their cars and their houses, who understand those costs, and get on with optimizing the program that can be delivered rather than continuing to talk about a program that can't be. But I also think that the point of staging and sequencing these things across time is an important one, and there is a path to doing all of this.
All right, appreciate your time this morning. Jeff Cooper, CEO of the Infrastructure Commission.